The story centers on Dominika, a talented Russian ballerina who has dedicated her life to dancing since childhood while caring for her ailing mother. One day she entrusts her mother to a nurse and prepares for an important performance. Also in the audience is her uncle Ivan, a high-ranking official in the Russian intelligence service. There a man named Dmitry who has close ties to the criminal underworld asks for a photo with Dominika. However, his behavior goes too far and makes Dominika very uncomfortable. The show then began, and Dominika danced gracefully, captivating the audience. However, tragedy struck shortly after when her male partner on stage misstepped and fell onto Dominika's leg, severely breaking it. Dominika was rushed to the hospital and underwent emergency surgery. On the other hand, we are introduced to a man named Nash, a CIA agent conducting a covert operation in Moscow. One day he prepares to meet his contact, known only by the pseudonym Marble, in a park. However, before the meeting can take place, the police suddenly appear. In order to save his informant, Nash fires his gun into the ground to attract the attention of the officers, which ultimately gives Marble the opportunity to escape. Meanwhile, Nash himself is captured and taken to the American embassy. Upon arriving at the American embassy, Nash was informed that Marble was safe, but for security reasons, Nash had to be immediately returned to America. Meanwhile, Ivan attended a meeting with the Director of Foreign Intelligence and General Vladimir, where they discussed the recording of the incident in the park and noted the presence of a mysterious figure who had managed to escape. Back at the hospital, Dominika woke up from surgery, but her leg was now in a metal brace, and she slowly realized that her ballet career was over. Month after month passed, and she was still walking with a cane. One day, Ivan came to visit her to tell her that Dominika had been replaced by someone else, so all the benefits she used to receive were now revoked. Ivan then offered his help, but emphasized that the decision was up to Dominika. Before leaving, he left an envelope containing photos in which Dominika's stage partner was seen with the new dancer. From this, it seemed clear that her male partner had deliberately harmed Dominika for his own personal gain. Filled with rage, Dominika went to the theater, watched the two of them, and followed the man to the sauna. There she found the couple making out, and unable to control herself, Dominika immediately attacked them with her cane. After that, she made an anonymous phone call to report an accident. Her reputation was ruined, and with no other options, she finally went to see her uncle. Ivan was willing to help, but on the condition that Dominika had to do a task. She was asked to approach Dmitry, the man who had once molested her, and seduce him to obtain information. Although hesitant, she finally agreed for the sake of her mother's medical expenses. That night, Dominika dressed up and met Dmitry at the hotel. She managed to attract his attention until he finally entered the room with her. But when the situation heated up, a masked man suddenly entered and killed Dmitry. The masked man then covered Dominika's body with a coat and carried her out safely. The man's name was Konstantin, a field agent working for Ivan. Shortly after, Ivan explained that Dominika now knew their country's big secret, which meant there were only two options for her: work for the government or be killed. And having no other choice, Dominika was finally forced to agree to work for the government. She was then sent to public school number 4, a special training ground for sparrows. There they were taught to weaponize their bodies and minds with their sexual appeal as their primary tool. Upon arrival, Dominika was greeted by the headmistress, known only as Matron. The next day, she immediately began training, and Matron gave a speech saying that the world was in chaos and only Russia dared to do whatever it took to restore order. She also emphasized that from now on, the students' bodies belonged to the state, and they had to be ready to carry out any mission without hesitation. Meanwhile, Nash attended an internal CIA meeting where he was criticized for jeopardizing operations in Moscow. He was temporarily suspended, but defended himself by saying that he was the only one with a strong connection to Marble. The CIA eventually gave him a second chance and assigned him to Budapest to reestablish contact with someone. At Sparrow School, the training appears to be intensifying. In one session, Matron shows photos of ordinary people on television and asks the students to guess their hidden desires. Victor, one of the arrogant students, fails to answer correctly. Dominika then steps forward and gives the correct analysis, embarrassing Victor.
Very good, Katya. Anya, come here for a moment.
In the next exercise, a female student fails to seduce the man she is paired with, demonstrating how demanding the training standards are. The next day, the students were asked to serve young soldiers who had just returned from the battlefield. Dominika took one and carried out her duties decisively. After that, matron assessed Domenica's performance in front of the class. She said Domenica had deadly techniques but was still holding back from giving her all. This statement made Domenica uncomfortable, but she remained calm. Not long after, Victor attacked her from behind while she was taking a shower. Fortunately, Domenica quickly fought back using the water faucet, injuring Victor. The incident caused an uproar and reached the ears of the leadership. General Vladimir then came to investigate. He spoke directly to Domenica and asked her why she did it. Domenica calmly replied that she only served her country, not her colleagues, and that answer certainly surprised the general. In the next test, which was observed via camera, matron asked Domenica to identify what Victor wanted. To answer the question, in front of all the students, Domenica took off her clothes and challenged Victor. But Victor refused and left in embarrassment. Domenica then said that what Victor wanted was not her, but power. That answer impressed Vladimir, so he gave Domenica a special mission to Budapest to approach Nash and find out who Marble really was.
Welcome to Budapest.
Upon arriving in Budapest, Domenica stayed with Martha, a seasoned Sparrow, and her operation was overseen by Maxim, the local station chief of the Russian Federation's Foreign Intelligence Service. Domenica then observed Nash after learning he frequently swam in a pool. She approached him pretending to be an interpreter at the embassy. Nash was initially suspicious but remained friendly. The next day, Nash didn't show up at the pool, and Domenica realized Nash had disappeared. In fact, Nash already knew who Domenica was and had reported her to his superiors. He finally decided to approach Domenica to turn the tables.
Under the name Katerina Zakova, but her real name is Dominika Igorova. She's Ivan Igorov's. She's gold. I know it.
Okay, see what you can find out.
The next day, Domenica saw Martha meeting with Stephanie, an American government employee. And upon seeing this, Domenica became suspicious and began to investigate secretly. Soon after, Nash admitted that he had stolen Domenica's identity and knew the purpose of her visit. Domenica finally confessed that she had been assigned to seduce Nash and invite him to dinner. After returning from there, Domenica searched Martha's room and eventually found evidence that Martha had been selling information to Stephanie. Domenica then provoked Maxim at a bar until he finally slapped her. The entire incident was captured on camera and used to threaten Maxim into reporting positive results to Moscow.
Tomorrow you will write a favorable report.
That you're impressed with the progress I've made with Nash.
Or I'll have you arrested for assault. Look at the camera over my left shoulder. You'll be recalled to Moscow and your career will be over.
Meanwhile, Nash was seen waiting for someone at a restaurant, and when he returned home, Domenica followed him all the way to his house. There she asked about the incident in the park the other day, and after hearing a bit of his story, she kissed Nash. However, Nash stopped the moment and asked her to leave. The next day, Ivan came to see Domenica to press her for news about the mission. However, instead of giving him an answer, Domenica lied, saying that she was also working with Martha and Stephanie and needed additional funds. Ivan looked suspicious but did not show any reaction. As her uncle was about to leave, Domenica saw his passport and found some important information. After returning from meeting Ivan, Domenica found Martha dead in the bathroom, and shortly thereafter, Konstantin suddenly appeared choking her while saying that it was the fate of Russian traitors. On the other hand, Nash received news that Marble had signaled that Domenica was a member of Sparrow. CIA began to doubt the information from Nash, but Nash insisted that Domenica could be bought. Nash then invited Domenica to talk and told her that he knew her true identity as a member of Sparrow. Domenica finally opened up and told her life story, emphasizing that everything she did was only for her mother's treatment. Nash then offered her to become a double agent with protection from America. Domenica seemed very hesitant about the offer, but Nash assured her that he could be trusted. Their relationship grew closer after that. The next day, Domenica was tested with a lie detector in front of the CIA. She passed the test, and in return, she asked for funds to buy confidential information from Stephanie to find out what Stephanie had planned with Martha. The next day, Domenica and Maxim went to London to meet Stephanie in person. Domenica stayed in a hotel room that had been fitted with a hidden camera, and she brought a fake disc to exchange for the real one. When they met, she claimed to be Martha's successor, successfully gained Stephanie's trust, accepted the disc, and secretly exchanged it for the fake one. Shortly after, Stephanie became suspicious because she felt she had been watched all along, and in a panic, she threw away Domenica's bribe money, then ran into the street and was hit by a truck, killing her. One of the Russian agents monitoring the situation suspected sabotage and accused Dominika and Maxim. They were immediately summoned back to Moscow, and upon their arrival even confiscated the disc and ordered Dominika and Maxim detained and interrogated.
Did you give Boucher to the Americans?
No,
Are you working for the Americans?
I love my country.
Last time, did you tell the Americans about Boucher?
Maxim, unable to withstand the torture, was shot dead, while Dominika remained steadfast in her stance and denied her involvement. A few days later, Ivan regained trust and returned Dominika to Budapest to continue her original mission of finding Marble's identity. Upon arriving there, she met Nash, and the two spent the night together. But in the middle of the night, Constantine suddenly entered and tortured Nash to get information. Dominika pretended to help Constantine, but in the end she turned on him and managed to incapacitate him. Nash and Dominika survived, though both were severely injured. After being severely tortured during her last mission, Dominika is now being treated in the hospital, and shortly thereafter she receives a surprise visit from General Vladimir. Behind his calm demeanor, Vladimir finally reveals the big secret that he is the one known as Marble, a double agent who has been leaking Russian secrets to the CIA. He explains that his reason for betraying his country is not solely for money, but because he is disappointed in his own country. In the past, when his wife was seriously ill, the Russian government forbade him from seeking treatment abroad. He could only resign himself to this until he eventually lost the person he loved most. And from that moment on, he was determined to fight from within by becoming a double agent. However, his position is now in grave danger because his identity could be exposed at any moment. Therefore, he asked Dominika to take the most risky step, which is to turn he into Russia as a traitor. That way, Russia will fully trust Dominika, and she can take over his position while also saving her mother. Dominika is shocked to hear this request, and she realizing that handing over Vladimir means sacrificing a major CIA asset. But behind her cold facade, she begins to devise a cunning plan that could only come from her intelligence. Instead of sacrificing Vladimir, Dominika decided to turn the tables in a more subtle way. She met with Russian representatives and said that she knew who the real traitor was, but was willing to reveal it only if she was promised complete freedom. Russia agreed and arranged a special meeting at the airport to reveal who would be handed over. On the appointed day, Nash arrived at the location and appeared very disappointed because he felt that Dominika was trying to trick the CIA. However, when the time came, it was not Vladimir who appeared, but Dominika's uncle Ivan, which surprised everyone because the accusations were directed at him. Dominika cleverly pieced together evidence that it was Ivan who had actually caused the mission in London to fail. He was the one who should have been responsible for the operation, but instead he covered it up and blamed others in order to protect his own position. In her narrative, Ivan is portrayed as an ambitious figure who was willing to abuse his power. Dominika successfully planted the strong impression that Ivan was the real traitor, and in the end, Vladimir remained safe and untouched.
Discs Boucher gave us. Supposed to have come from the DOD. It's a fake. The discs you passed on to the president. Your personal victory.
You killed me.
Nash, who was there, recognized Dominika's cleverness despite being disappointed by his cunning ways. Russia finally passed sentence on Ivan on the spot, and he was shot dead by Russian gunmen.
Target is in range.
Dominika was then picked up by helicopter, where he is now considered a national hero who successfully exposed a traitor to the state. In an official ceremony, she received a Medal of Honor and stood next to General Vladimir, who remained free. From the outside, Dominika appeared to be loyal to Russia, but in reality, she had been playing both sides very cleverly. At the end of the story, she returned home with her mother and now has complete freedom and control over her life. This plot twist confirms that Dominika is not just a pawn in the game, but a skilled player who can turn the tables. Dominika chose to protect Vladimir because she needed a protector in Russia's elite circle. Meanwhile, Nash finally realizes that Dominika is playing much smarter than he thought, and so the film ends. The film Red Sparrow teaches us that life sometimes forces people to survive in ways they never chose. Dominica, who was originally just a ballerina, had to enter a world full of deception, betrayal, and manipulation. However, behind the harshness of the spy game, she shows that intelligence, determination, and courage can be weapons more dangerous than firearms. The message we can take away is that no matter how difficult the situation, we should never completely surrender control of our lives to others. Protect the people we love, use common sense, and become someone who can turn the tables even when the world tries to bring us down. Because in the end, freedom and choice are in our own hands.